Hi everyone, welcome to another Procreate tutorial. This is the drawing that we'll be completing in today's video, this cute little barn owl with lots of fun texture on it. So we do a lot of texturing after we lay down our base shapes, and then we'll even add a paper texture layer to the whole thing at the end to really bring it together. So if you are new here, I mainly post Procreate tutorials, so if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and subscribe. I also offer extra tutorials over on Patreon, so if you join us over there, you get access to exclusive tutorials every month, along with sneak peeks of what we're drawing here on YouTube. And when you join, you get access to all the exclusive tutorials I've posted thus far, about a year and a half's worth, including some from last fall and holiday season, if you want to jump right into those. So I'll post some of the recent ones and last year ones on the screen here so that you can see what we've been doing. But before we get started on today's drawing, the only thing you'll need to do is download the color palette and the paper texture to use. So they're both linked in the description below. They're totally free to download. Just save them both to your iPad in your files, and then for the color palette file, just double tap it or click on it and click open in Procreate, and it will automatically pop into Procreate so that you can use the same colors as you follow along with the video today. And then for the paper texture, we'll import that at the end of the video. I'll show you how to do that, so just make sure it's saved to your files and ready to go. I will also post the canvas dimensions, color profile, and layers needed on the screen and in the description below so that you can use that to set up your canvas. So take a minute to get everything ready and then come back and we'll get started. Okay, here is the color palette that we'll be using today, so let's just go ahead and get started. So the very first color on our color palette is a bright white color, and that is going to be our background color. So set that if you need to by going to your layer menu, clicking on the background color layer, and selecting the first color on the first row if you need to set it to the bright white. We'll also use that later on our eyes for a little light in our eyes. So otherwise, we'll just go ahead and get started on the rest of it. We're probably going to start with the tree stump, and then we'll draw the owl on top of that. So to do our tree stump, we'll just be on layer 1. We'll grab our second color on the top row of the color palette, and we'll start with our monoline brush under the calligraphy tab. I have my opacity for the brush at 100, my size at 30, and we'll just draw a perfectly horizontal oval. So we'll draw a nice oval shape on the screen, nice and skinny. Hold it down until it turns perfectly smooth, and then touch your finger on the screen to make it perfectly horizontal. It'll snap to these different angles, and we want this horizontal one. Just a good kind of smallish size like so. Don't do anything else to it yet except for fill it in. Then we can grab it with our arrow tool on freeform. Make sure snapping's turned on in the bottom left, and we want to center it on our screen from left to right where we see this vertical yellow line towards the bottom. And then if you need to increase or decrease the size at all, if you want to make it skinnier from top to bottom, anything like that, go ahead and change that. But a nice little oval like this. Good room on the left and right side of our canvas still. I would say it takes up maybe like a third or so. If we were to split the canvas into like thirds, I would say it's like a third in width. Again, skinny from top to bottom. So now we'll make the rest of our tree trunk before we come back and do any of our texture and stuff. So I'm just going to add a new layer on my layer menu, drag it below our oval layer, and then grab our first color on the last row of the color palette to start these browns that make up our tree trunk. Same monoline brush. And on each side now, I'm going to go kind of right where this oval is. I'm going to go start there, go kind of straight down, and then kind of outwards. Good ways. Something like that on each side. They don't have to be perfectly even. They can be kind of like wobbly too, because they make it look more natural. But then we'll kind of come together by making some little like curvy lines like this. Always like in that direction. So on the right side, they'll go kind of to the right. And then maybe as they get closer to the middle, they'll go like more straight up and down. Something like this to create our tree trunk shape to start. And then I'll connect it across the top under our oval so we can fill this in. Then if you need to, go ahead and smooth anything out or adjust anything. If you need to. I might want these middle ones to come down a little further towards the bottom of the screen. So I might extend those a little bit further to kind of give it like a roundness. That the edges would be a little higher up and then these middler pieces would maybe come a little bit lower. Okay, and then we need a little bit of ground around it, and I don't have quite enough room, so I am going to go to my layer menu, grab both of my layers, so select one, slide right on the other if you need to, if you need more room around the bottom. I just need a smidge more room. Then I'll grab it with my arrow tool, and you can either downsize it on freeform or uniform, or you can move it up a little bit, whatever works. But I'm just going to move it up just a smidge, like so. And now we can make our ground around it. So on our layer menu, another new layer, drag it to the bottom of everything. And we're going to go back to our second color on the top row, same monoline brush. And I'm going to start kind of behind my trunk right in the middle here, come out to the side, and then we're going to kind of create like another kind of ovalish shape around it, but kind of wavy and stuff. So I did that all the way around, connected it in the back so I can fill it in. And that's our ground. Feel free to adjust that if you want. Arrow tool, you can resize it. You can smooth it out with your brush or your eraser, anything that you need to do. But I think that that looks good. Nice and kind of just messy is fine. Now, before we do all of our shadows and textures and stuff, why don't we just get our owl in place? So let's go to our layer menu, add a new layer on top of all of our layers. And we're going to start with the head. So that is still going to be with the same color that we're on, second one on the top row, same monoline brush. And this time we're going to start with a perfect circle. So I'm going to just start kind of up in the air here. Draw a good sized circle, hold it down until it turns perfectly smooth. Touch your finger on the screen to make it a perfect circle. Good size like this. Go ahead and fill it in. Grab it with our arrow tool on freeform, and we're going to stretch it out from side to side so it's a little bit wider. So we want it to be pretty round, but still wider left to right than from top to bottom. So something like that looks good. I'm going to center it on my center yellow line here. And I would even say that its head is almost as wide as our tree trunk is. And then we still have a good distance though between our head and our tree trunk still for its body and its legs. So we want its body to hit like like the bottom of its body is going to hit right above our tree trunk. So make sure you have enough room for it there. A little bit of room at the top is all for our little flaps to come off. And we can always like resize and move things around later, but let's go ahead and start with something like this. And again, make sure it's centered on our center yellow line here because we're going to use symmetry now in a moment. So with it centered, we're going to turn symmetry on. So under our gear icon, under canvas, click to turn on the drawing guide, click edit drawing guide and turn on symmetry. You should see a vertical line here. If you do not, just click on options and select vertical and then click done. Now on our layer menu, this layer should say assisted on it. If it doesn't, just click on it and turn on drawing assist. And we're going to grab our eraser this time with the monoline brush selected as our eraser. And same thing, my opacity is at 100, my size is at 30. And we're just going to dip in right in the middle here. So kind of right in the center on our symmetry line, I'm going to start just a little ways up from the bottom, right on my symmetry line, and I'm going to curve outwards and then hold that down. So we get a little bit of a curve there towards the bottom of our head. And then erase everything else below that. So we get this little dip to kind of create the shape of the head of our owl. And that's all we're doing for that. So let's go ahead and make the top of his head now. So on our layer menu, let's add a new layer, and we're going to use symmetry for this also. So click on this layer and turn on drawing assist, and then switch our color to the fourth one on the second row. So I'm going to start a good ways down on my symmetry line on the shape, maybe like a third to almost like halfway down. And I'm going to start right on my symmetry line, and then I'm going to kind of curve up towards the side, curve kind of straight, and then kind of curve off, something like this, curving upwards at the end. And that'll start our little points on the top of our head. And then from this point, we'll make the rest of it. So we'll kind of come back in, curve back up again, a little higher, come back in, curve back up a little higher. That's our top one. And then we'll kind of curve downwards and then back up towards the middle. We just want to cover up the top of the head. So, and kind of curve towards the middle like the top of his head does. So however high above your head is fine. Something like this. Then let's go ahead and fill that in, and then we can touch it up. So then if we need to use our pen or our eraser or anything like that, go ahead and touch up all your little points. Make sure all your lines filled in nicely. Something like this. So then his little, flaps on the top of his head aren't quite as wide as the rest of his head. So something like this looks good. So mess around with that as much as you need to, and then we'll move on to the rest of his face area. So on our layer menu, we'll add another new layer. We'll click on it and turn on Drawing Assist, and we'll grab our first color on the second row. So this is a bit lighter than our base color. And now we'll make the little spots for his eyes. So now that we have that in place, we're going to kind of follow that. So a little bit lower on the symmetry line. We're going to kind of follow whatever curve we have towards the middle. And I didn't hold it down. You can try to if you want, but sometimes the shape it gives you is kind of wonky and doesn't really work. But I connected back to the middle, so I'll fill in that whole area there. And then again, we're on a new layer. Feel free to adjust it if you need to. But very simple like that is fine. Okay, next up, we'll just create our face while we're here. So layer menu, add a new layer. Click on it and turn on Drawing Assist. Grab our last color on the top row, 6th thin line. And our same monoline brush, we're going to start with the eyes, kind of right in the middle of this area here. We're going to make kind of like an oval, a vertical oval. Hold that down until it turns nice and smooth. You can click the Edit Ellipse button if you want to adjust it. So I'm going to make it a little bit wider, a little bit smaller. So just keep adjusting it, but a nice kind of vertical-ish oval, right kind of smack dab in the middle of this area here. Go ahead and fill that in. Awesome. Now for its beak, we're going to just make kind of like a rounded long triangle. So the top will be flat and then it'll come to a point at the bottom. So maybe we'll start towards the bottom. So on our symmetry line, a little bit above where our lighter color ends, I'll start there and I'll kind of curve upwards. Hold that down if you wish to. And then kind of connect across the top, slightly curved, something like that. Fill it in. That is our little beak there. Let's go ahead and add the little twinkle in the eye real quick. So on our layer menu, add a new layer. Don't turn on Drawing Assist this time. Grab our bright white color, first one on the first row, our same monoline brush, same size is good. And in the top right corner of each eye, just make a little dot. So we couldn't use symmetry for that because it would have mirrored where one was in the top left, one was in the top right. So that's why we do that without symmetry. And then we also won't be using symmetry for our body. So that's it for symmetry for now. And that's it for our little head there. So to start saving some layers, I'm going to snap my white dots to my face layer. But then everything else will need to stay separate so that we can do all of our texturing. If you need to move it around though at all, you can grab each layer. So select one, slide right on the others, arrow tool, and you can move it, but keep it on our symmetry line. But if you need to resize it or anything, go ahead and do so. I might make mine a little bit bigger, recenter it. Okay, now let's go ahead and draw the body on our layer menu. Let's just add a layer right above our tree stump layer, our top like oval here. Add a layer there underneath all of our head layers. And our body color is again going to be the second one on the top row, same monoline brush. So I'm going to start on the left side here, right underneath like the face, but in a little bit. So maybe like kind of right about here. And I'm going to start there and I'm going to draw a curved line going this way. Hold it down until it turns perfectly smooth. Something like that. Going off kind of the right side, and then I'll connect it back and fill it in. So this is where our wing is going to be. But we just want to see that bottom and left side of the body there. That looks great. Okay, layer menu, add a new layer above this one for our wing. We'll grab our brownish color again, fourth one on the second row, same monoline brush, and now I'll start on the right side of his face, maybe kind of like where his eye is, or like right about there under this left side here. So kind of make sure that you sink underneath our head there. So I'm going to start there. I'm going to draw a curve off this way, hold it down. So kind of like lined up with the bottom of the body still, but off the right side a little further. And we ended kind of like a little bit outside of where our head ends. Okay, and then now we'll make some little feathers to kind of come back. So I'll kind of make a curve there. I'll make another curve like a feather, make another big one, and then maybe make one more till we curve back to our head. Something like that to start. Connect that at the top so we can fill it in. And then you can like adjust the feathers if you need to. Okay, and then if you need to, you can grab it with your arrow tool. You can resize it, move it around, anything like that. So if yours got a little too big or something, you can lower the size of it. You can move it in or out, anything like that. But yeah, the bottom of our feather or our wing should line up kind of with the bottom of our body and then go outside of our head quite a ways. And it's kind of off my stump and stuff too. So that looks good to me. Okay, but now that all of our pieces are in place, now we're going to move him around. So on our layer menu, I'm going to grab all of the layers that create my owl. So right above my stump, grab it with my arrow tool, and now we can kind of move it. If you want to resize the whole thing, you can. I'm going to move it to the left a little bit so that like the edge of our body and our head kind of lines up with the edge of our stump. And then if it goes off the right edge still, that's fine. A little gap between the bottom of my body and the tree stump there also. Now we can make his legs. So on our layer menu, I'm going to add another layer right above my layer 1 here underneath all my body layers. I'm going to grab my 6 color on the top row, same monoline brush. I might lower the size to like 10% to draw our legs. So coming from like the middle area of his body here, I'm going to kind of come out at a slight angle to the left. Kind of make that nice and thick there. I went over it a few times. I'm not holding it down, but you can if you would like to. And then right till we get to like the middle of our stump. And then from that point, I'll go to the left a little bit, slightly curved, like up in the middle, to the right a little bit, slightly curved. And then one more kind of like towards the bottom, like slightly curved, a little shorter. So we got 3 little prongs sticking off like that. And then we'll do the same thing right next to it. Maybe a little bit more like up and down for our base leg shape. And then same thing, curve to the left, curve to the right, and then kind of closer downwards, a little shorter, like so, for our little legs. That looks great. Feel free to grab that with your arrow tool, resize it, move it around, anything like that. I might make it a little bit more centered over my stump, but a little to the left is fine. Okay, so then the last like base piece to add is just our leaves coming out from the ground. So let's go ahead and add those. So on our layer menu, let's add a layer anywhere and drag it all the way to the bottom behind all of our layers so far, including that last ground layer. And then we'll grab our yellowish color, 5th one on the bottom row, and our monoline brush. I'll go back up to 30%. And we are going to start on each side with, I'll probably do one on the right side because our wing is here, and then I'll do 2 on the left side to kind of help fill that in. So I'm going to start right underneath my ground layer here and just do a quick curve up like so. Do a nice quick one to make it nice and smooth. That's my baseline, and then on the other side here I'll do maybe 2 baselines, one maybe a little shorter, like so. Okay, then we'll add our leaves to it. So I'm going to start on the right one here. At the top, I'm just going to make a quick like teardrop shape, like so. Then I'm going to go down and do the same thing all the way down. So I'll maybe just start on the left side, do a little teardrop off of it, or little leaves, kind of whatever you like. Trying to keep them like similar in their shape and size, even though mine are getting a lot skinnier as I go. Something like that looks good. And then I'll do the same thing for the other side. Smooth anything out that you need to. But that looks great. The other side will do the same thing. I'll start at the top. Do one side at a time, or whatever works for you. Filling them in as you go. And our last one, and I'm hoping that it doesn't overlap at all. So if you need to move your lines out further, go ahead and do so. This one, I guess I'm doing both sides at a time, all the way down. Awesome. That looks great. Okay, we'll add some more detail to the ground when we get there, but now we can go ahead and just start working on everything to add our texture. So let's just start from the bottom up. So let's just start with our next layer up, which is our ground layer. Click on that layer and turn on alpha lock. And the base color for that was our second color on the top row. So we have a slightly darker, a slightly lighter, and a bit darker color next to those. So let's start with our slightly darker one, third one on the top row. And the brush that we're going to be using for this the whole time is the wet acrylic brush under the painting category. So go ahead and find that. I have my opacity for the brush at 100, and then our size will start at maybe like 5%, see how that goes. But with this darker color, we're going to go mainly around the tree trunk here towards the bottom to kind of create like some shadow there. You can go out quite a ways because we're going to go back in with our darker color next to it as well. But this just adds lots of good texture, so pick your brush up multiple times, kind of whatever you need to do. Then I might add some shadow kind of just to the edges as well here and there. Something like this. Okay, that's a good start. Now we'll grab our next color, fourth one on the top row, slightly lighter, and we'll kind of fill in some of this open area, just kind of going through, adding some little sections of this kind of highlight color, working like mostly like horizontally or so, something like that, but just to add some more texture through it. Okay, then we'll go to our darker color now, fifth one on the top row, and this one we'll keep really close to the tree trunk now to add some more shadow there, or at least like in these little crevices where our little pieces come together. So something like that. Awesome. Now we'll move on to our next layer up, which is our tree trunk layer. So click on that layer, turn on alpha lock. The base color for that was our first color in the last row, and then we have a lighter and two darker colors. So let's go ahead and start with our lighter one, second one on the bottom row, same brush, same size and everything. And we'll just go through and kind of work like vertically or like at the angle that our tree trunk is. So kind of vertically, and then maybe it shoots out at an angle closer to the bottom, but we're just going to work in sections like that. Add some good texture. You can go all the way up to the top, all the way to the edge. Just working again in little kind of sections to start filling out. Okay, then we'll go in with our darker color, third one on the bottom row, and we'll go kind of in between those to add some shadows. Same idea, and you know, you can go over some of them even to mix the colors together. That's fine too. But a good amount towards the bottom of these pieces as well is good to add kind of some shadows towards the bottom there. Okay, then we'll go in with our darkest color, fourth one on the bottom row, and just kind of deepen some of these shadows up a little bit towards the bottom mainly. I don't necessarily want to go through the main part of my tree trunk much, but you can add a little bit of it if you would like to. Feel free to also like go in with your base color if you need to ever to kind of structure it. Like you can go back through and kind of just mix the colors up even more. But whatever you want to do, a good amount of this going on to add some good texture for our tree trunk. That looks awesome. Okay, next layer up is the top of our tree trunk. So click on that layer and turn on alpha lock. That one was again with our second color on the top row. So we have the darker, the lighter, and the darker still. So let's go to our third color on the top row and add some of this darker color mainly to the edges. So I'm just going to kind of go right around the edge here, following the shape of it. But again, it can be kind of messy. That's kind of the whole idea with this brush. So something like that. Then we'll grab our lighter color, fourth one on the top row, and go through the middle, kind of in like an oval shape. And then we want our really dark lines. So let's grab our fifth color on the top row for that. I'll probably lower my brush size to like 3%. And I'm just going to start kind of towards the middle and add like a little oval and then kind of go off of that here and there towards the edges like so. So they don't have to be full ovals. I'm kind of breaking them apart, but just to get like some rings for the tree trunk. So something like that looks good. Okay. Next layer up is our feet. We don't need to do anything with that. So then after that is our body layer. And before we start coloring it, I want to add a little bit more shape to it. So we're going to be on this body layer, grab our body color, second one on the top row, and grab our monoline brush under the calligraphy tab again at 30%. And I'm just going to go through on the side that I can see and add some little kind of feather details sticking off. So just some quick little feathery pieces, nothing going out too far, but just a few little pieces, kind of always following that same angle, like so, something like that to just give it a little bit more shape before we get started. Okay, then on our layer menu, once that's done, click on this layer, turn on alpha lock, and we can start adding our details. So we just want it to look nice and fluffy. So again, we'll grab our third color on the top row, back to our wet acrylic brush at like 5% again. And this time I'm just going to add little kind of fluffy sections, kind of always going with the shape of the body, pretty small, just like little blobs, like so. Get a few of those darker ones. And then I also want a shadow under the head a little bit. So I'm going to kind of start drawing there until I follow that shape there. We also want a little bit of a shadow next to our wings. So I'm going to kind of follow that through. Okay, so a good amount of the darker ones, and then we'll grab our lighter color, fourth one on the top row, and go back through with that as well to add some light, fluffy sections, avoiding our little shadow at the top. So something like that. And that's all that we're going to do for the body. Next up is our wings. So then on our wing layer, let's go ahead and click on that and turn alpha lock on. And we have our base wing color, the fourth one on the second row, and then we have a darker and lighter version. So let's grab our darker version first, the fifth one on the second row, same brush, same color, or sorry, same size. And then same thing, I'm going to start at the top and make a little shadow under the head with that color kind of meeting up with the shadow next to it on our body. And then same thing, we'll just kind of do some little fluffy sections, always going in the direction of the wing. Once that's done, let's grab our lighter color, sixth one on the second row, and kind of fill in some more pieces pretty lightly to add some little sections for that as well. Okay, next up is our main head layer. Let's again add some more to our original shape first. So click on this layer and turn Drawing Assist off. Alpha Lock's not on either yet. We'll grab our base color again, second one in the top row, and switch back to our monoline brush. And then again on each side, I'm just going to make some little kind of fluffy out pieces just on the sides of the head, really nothing below that. So just on each side. And we could have left symmetry on, but I don't want them to be perfect. So maybe something like that. Okay, layer menu, click on this layer, turn alpha lock on, and now we can do our shadows and highlights, mainly shadows on this one. So we'll grab our third color on the top row, back to our wet acrylic brush at like 5%. And I'm just going to do kind of some shadows near the sides of the head, like so. Nothing too much in the middle here because we don't want it to blend in with our shadow below it. So just really towards the sides. And then maybe a little bit under this like fluffy piece at the top, or kind of orangey piece, just to add some more kind of texture too. Then let's grab our lighter color, fourth one on the top row, and we can add a little bit of this in as well, just to add some texture. Nothing too crazy. Layer menu, next up is our top head layer. Let's go ahead and click on that and first turn drawing assist off, then click on it and turn on alpha lock. We're ready to draw on this one. So then we're going to grab our fifth color on the second row and let's go through and just kind of add some little patches of this, always kind of following the direction. So angling, so like straight up and down in the center, angling a little on the right and left. Pretty small ones, adjust your size of your brush if you need to. And then let's grab our lighter color, sixth one on the second row, and work those in as well. If you go over each other, that's okay. That looks great. Next up is our face layer. So let's go ahead, and the only thing we're going to do on this, we'll add a little bit of highlight through this, and then we'll also add a shadow around the eyes and the nose. But let's go ahead and turn drawing assist off, then turn alpha lock on. And our base color was the first one on the second row, so we have a slightly lighter one, second one on the second row to start. And let's just kind of add that in little sections, kind of like around our eyes and nose. It's really hard to see, but we just want a little bit of texture going on. Then we'll grab our next color, third one on the second row, for around our eyes and nose. So I'm just going to go kind of on the lower side of my eyes, the lower side of my nose. Add a little bit of a shadow with that. Awesome. Then on our layer menu, that is it for all of our layers except for my leaves down here. I forgot to do those while we were down there. So let's go ahead and go back to that layer, click on it and turn on alpha lock. And our yellow color base was the fifth one on the bottom row. We have a slightly darker and a lighter one. Let's start with the lighter one actually. So the seventh one on the bottom row. And we will go kind of around the edges with these pretty lightly, just the outer edges of each leaf. Okay, then I'll switch to our darker color, sixth one on the bottom row. I'll drop my size a little bit to like 2 to 3%, and we will go kind of through the centers of the leaves in that angle to add that kind of detail to them. You can draw some lines off of it if you want. You can go through the center of the stem a little if you want as well. But we just kind of want a brief little like texture and detail added there. So nothing too crazy. That looks good. Same thing for my right one. Just kind of going through the stem as I go a little bit. Awesome. And then finally, we're going to add a little bit of grass to the front. So on our layer menu, let's just go above my oval layer and add a layer right in there. We're going to grab our base yellow color, fifth one on the bottom row, and we're just going to switch to our dry ink brush really quick under the inking category. My opacity for the brush is at 100, my size is at like 10, and I'm just going to go through and add some quick little blades of grass through the front of our tree trunk and this ground area. So some in little sections together, varied heights and sizes, but just a few of those to add some more detail to the ground there. And then once that's done, we're going to add our paper layer to really bring it all together. So on our layer menu, let's add a layer to the very top of our layers and grab our paper file that you should have downloaded. So under the gear icon, under add, go to insert a file or a photo wherever you saved it. Mine should be in my files. And just search for paper texture, find that, import it. It'll import like a rectangle like this. So on uniform, I'm just going to increase the size. So zoom out on your canvas if you need to see it. Increase the size till it covers my whole canvas like so. Okay, so now it covered up our beautiful picture. Then on our layer menu, we're just going to click the N on this layer with our paper on it so we can change the layer style. I'm going to switch it to linear burn here. And then I'm also going to drop the opacity a little bit to like 50 to 60%. So we just get a little bit of texture, but it's not like making our picture really gray. So I'm going to go over to like 55-ish or so. But that adds a good texture all around. but still lets our colors shine nice and bright. But that is how we want it to look. I will go to my gear icon under canvas. I'm going to turn the drawing guide off so our line disappears and we can see our finished picture. Move anything else around that you need to, but otherwise that is it for our drawing today. So I hope that you had fun. I hope that you liked the way that yours turned out, and I hope that you maybe learned something new. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up so that YouTube shows it to more people. It really helps out my channel, so I really appreciate it. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't yet so that you don't miss out on any future tutorials from me. And then if you would like to share your drawing on Instagram, I would love to see it. So go ahead and post it there and then tag me so that I can check it out. And while you're there, go ahead and give me a follow so you can see what I'm working on next. Thanks for watching.